If you're praying, keep praying. But I'm going to break my King James only rule today. I'm going to read from a couple different translations. So Proverbs 12:26 in the NIV says, "The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray." And Proverbs 17:17 in the King James says, "A friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." So let me tell you a story about love. It was late summer, 1999. I was 18, dating this 20-year-old stud who drove a Eagle Premier with a bench front seat. We were driving to meet my friends in a movie. When we arrived at the theater, I slid over on the front seat and gave my man a big hug. And I thought he had whispered, "I love you," words we had not said to each other yet. So I said, "I love you" back. My boyfriend quickly pushed me away and got all awkward, and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I can't say that to you yet." I had no idea what had just happened. I don't know what he had said, but he had not said, "I love you." I had broke the first rule of dating, and I accidentally was the first one to say, "I love you," and it was not reciprocated. I was mortified. So thank goodness my friends showed up right about then, and I quickly ran away with them to assess the damage. How was I ever going to bounce back from that? This is the first time I had ever said "I love you" to anyone other than a family member, and I was dying inside. 23 years later, I still have a pit in my stomach when I think about it. But don't worry, he did say "I love you" a few months later, and I did land up marrying him. So I'm not sure if that incident just scarred me for life, but I'm not an "I love you" girl. I love you. A phrase, in my opinion, is used way too much and way too casually. I could bet there's only 2 people in this room who've probably ever heard those words from me. And I don't throw "I love you" out very often, even with people I really do love. My poor brother ends every phone conversation with "Bye, I love you," and I usually just go or something and hang up. And I was in the office the other day, and pastor was making all these district-wide calls, and almost every call ended with the other pastor going, "I love you, brother." And of course, he responds like a normal person and says, "I love you too." Meanwhile, I'm sitting here thinking, really? Do you really love him? Because the idea of dropping a casual "I love you" is inconceivable to me. I will only say "I love you" if I really, truly mean it. So quite a few years back, I was at the altar with a church friend. I gave her a hug, and before I even knew what was happening, I suddenly said, "I love you." And I don't even know how that happened. It just slipped out of my mouth. The whole encounter probably lasted only 5 minutes or 5 seconds, but if you only knew what was going through my mind, I was freaking out. "I love you? It's too soon. You just started being friends with her. Stupid, stupid, stupid." But at this time, unlike the time I let those words slip with my boyfriend, she looked me right in the eyes and immediately responded, "I love you too," with tears in her eyes. She had said it back. I didn't even realize it until that day, but I loved her. We had a true loving friendship. Friends are a big deal. Think for a minute about all the friends you've had in your life. Your first friends are pretty much just the kids in your neighborhood. My first childhood friend was a boy named Charlie. My parents owned a duplex, and Charlie lived upstairs. It was a friendship based on location. Think about your school friends. High school is probably the only time in your whole life that you're swimming in a sea of people and you just make friends based on interests. For instance, if you're on the dance team, you're friends with other dancers. If you're into robotics or band or DECA, you're probably friends with those who share the same interests. And a lot of people really bond with their high school friends and are friends for life. Now, your work friends, those are interesting friends. My work friends have known everything about me because we basically see each other every day. They will know if your mom's having surgery, or if your daughter made the honor roll, or if your husband did something really stupid the night before. My work friends and I have shared everything. Then one day, you just stop working with them, and you might keep in contact, but it's not like how it was before. The friendship basically dies. But your church friends, those are special friends. Like my "I love you" friend. We are like family. We are like-minded. There's indescribable bond, one that the world won't understand. These are the friends that you love, really love. I should be shouting "I love you" to every friend, every service. My church friends are priceless. As Jesus says in John 15:12-14, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love have no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Ye are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you. We should love these church friends as Jesus loves us. And that's why it hurts so much when a church friendship comes to an end. So here's where the message is taking a turn from the embarrassing love stories. And I've honestly been in knots about this for 2 weeks because I don't want to sound judgy. And I know I'm not the pastor or anybody of importance. But I just can't shake this. And I've gotten the okay from my authorities. So here we go. Sometimes, even though we may love a church friend, the friendship needs to end. Sometimes we need to make a separation. It doesn't mean we don't love that friend. We just can't be with them right now. I'm not talking about abandoning your friends in times of need just because they're having a marital problem or their kid's in trouble or they screwed up and gave into some vice. The scriptures don't say that. We should lift each other up and be there for each other. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. We need to help each other up, and I hope when I'm feeling down, a friend will be there to raise me up. But there's a difference between a friend going through a hard time and who needs help, and a friend who is on a mission to destroy the works of the Lord. In Genesis 13, Lot and Abram separate. In verse 8 and 9, Abram tells Lot, let there be no strife between me and thee, separate thyself. He loved Lot, but he had to separate for the better of the two of them. In this case, it was just a matter of resources. God had blessed them so abundantly, they couldn't sustain their flocks in abundance in one land. Genesis 13:6 says that the land was not able to bear them. That might be the case at times. Someday I pray this church blows up to thousands and thousands of members, and we'd probably consider separating just on the matter of resources. But that's not what I'm talking about today. I can't be friends with someone who attacks me, my church, my pastor, my God, especially if that person knows the truth. You can't be friends with someone who attacks you, your church, your pastor, and your God. I'm not talking about a new believer or someone that I'm witnessing to or someone who's learning. I want you to understand what I'm saying. I'm talking about a believer who attacks me and what I stand for. Things that are done in secret without the pastor's knowledge, covering, and authority are not okay. For 2 weeks I've had this word, and Monday night at prayer, these words just kept coming to me. And despite my major hesitation, I think the Lord wants me to say this, that there's someone in the house today that has a friendship that needs to end. I don't care if the friendship has been 4 years or 40 years, it needs to end. That friend that I said I love you to, I loved her, and I really do love her so much it hurts. But I'm not in contact with her anymore. She was constantly attacking my church. I cried over that relationship. I still cry, and I cried writing this. I was desperate to hold on to a relationship that I knew wasn't good for me and my walk with God. I was in constant turmoil over that relationship. I wanted to help her, but I was seriously drowning, and she was weighing me down. After months of this, I was praying one day, and that still small voice spoke to me and said, you know you can't be friends with her anymore. The minute I heard those words, I cried like I never cried before. I had sweat pouring out of every pore of my body because I was physically releasing the burden of this relationship. I didn't even realize at the time the war I'd been in over this, and I now had peace. However, I ended that friendship without strife, just like Lot and Abram did. I would see her tomorrow, and it would be okay. Do you know that after Abram separated himself from God, or from Lot, God renewed his covenant with him, as found in Genesis 13:14-18. Sometimes when we separate ourselves from relationship, we are able to see clearly again and renew our relationship with the Lord. But hear this, when Lot was in trouble, Abram was still there for him. Genesis 14:14 says, and when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants born in his own house, 318, and pursued them on to Dan. Verse 16, and he brought back all the goods, and also brought back again his brother Lot, and his good, and the women also, and the people. Abram stopped what he was doing and went and defended Lot. I know I would be there for my friend again in a heartbeat if she called me up tomorrow, broken and repentant. As I read before in John 15:13, we should lay down our life for our friends. I loved her, and I know I'd be there when the chips are down. A few months back, a sister spoke a word of wisdom to me when I was at the altar. She said, I need to completely mourn, heal, and this will be used for a testimony. And I believe that's happening today. I'm sharing my testimony of this relationship so I can possibly help someone going through a similar situation. You may need to end a relationship, mourn it, heal, and let it be used for a testimony. We need to choose our friends wisely and make sure that the people we associate with are lining up with the Lord. And don't just take my word for it. I'm going to let the word speak for me. Proverbs 6:16 through 19. These 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him: a proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devise wicked imaginations, feet that be swift to running to mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among brethren. Proverbs 13:20, he that walketh with wise men should be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Proverbs 16:28 in the New King James Version says, a perverse man sows strife, and a whisperer separates the best of friends. Proverbs 17:9 in the ESV, whoever covers an offense seeks love, but he who repents a matter separates close friends. Proverbs 22:24 through 25, make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt not go, lest thou learn his ways and get a snare to thy soul. James 4:4, ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is an enemy of God. And 1 Corinthians 15:33 in the NIV, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. You need to choose your friends and who you associate with wisely. The end is near. At the end of the day, my salvation is the number one thing. No friendship is more important than that, and I love Jesus most of all. I need to stop any relationship that stops me from getting closer to him. We can't let our friends lead us into temptation and lead us astray. We need to be firmly rooted. As Colossians 2:6 through 8 says, as ye have therefore received Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk ye in him, rooted and built up in him, established in the faith as ye have been taught, abounding therein with thanksgiving. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. The number one thing is your own salvation. And I sincerely hope I haven't upset anybody in this room. When we started doing these 10-10-10s, I promised God that I would do and say what he wanted me to, so I had to do this today. So I'd like to end with Proverbs 18:24. A man that hath friends must show himself friendly, and there's a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. And I consider all of you brothers and sisters, and I love you.